Hey there, welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Senior, and coming up on the show, I'm pissed off with this football team right now, and I know a lot of you are with me, and you feel that as well, with the Niners being 6-3 going into the NFL trade deadline. Obviously now coming out of it, going into Week 10 against the Rams, it feels as though, and it feels like they mailed it in. They waved the white flag by not making a move at the deadline, and that annoys me, because they had a need at pass rusher, and they didn't address it after the Michael Williams injury. And I think this is fitting. I want to pop up today's poll question. It's the pinned comment of today's show. Will the 49ers make the playoffs this year? Type yes, type no. Let me know, and join the conversation down in the comment section right now. So after the Michael Williams injury, pass rusher was a glaring need for the Niners. And it's been a big need since Nick Bosa went out after tearing his ACL in Week 3 against the Arizona Cardinals. I thought always that the Niners could survive without making a move at linebacker after the devastating injury to Fred Warner as he dislocated and broke his ankle. But you can't survive in the NFL, especially with the way that modern offenses matriculate downfield, all of the creativity, the play calling, the play designs, and all of the high skill level players on the field without a pass rush. And this defensive line is really tied to the secondary. If you can't generate a pass rush and get to the quarterback, it's not fair to that back end. You're asking these corners to stick with these wideouts for 5 to 10 seconds, and it's really hard to do that. Have you ever played football in snow? Who's it easier for? Playing wide receiver or cornerback? The wide receiver knows where he's going. The cornerback has to react to where the receiver is going. So that's kind of a funny comparison that I make with playing secondary on that back end. When you can't get a pass rush, how long do you expect your secondary to hold up? How do you expect them to play high-level ball if the quarterback has all day to throw, where they can go through their progressions, go through their reads, pick some flowers, eat a sandwich, sip some coffee, and then throw the football downfield? But if the pass rush is good, it does wonders for the secondary and the rest of the defense. And the Niners are in a spot now where they have one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL. This is based on tape. This is based on personnel. It's also based on the numbers. The Niners pass rushing rankings this year, they have 11 total sacks as a team. That's tied for 29th in the NFL. They have 98 total pressures. It's 28th in the NFL. Their pressure rate, 29.4%. It's 31st in the NFL. Their leading sack producer is Bryce Huff. He's missed the last couple of games. Their second leading sack producer, Nick Bosa, who barely played in that Week 3 game before tearing his ACL against Arizona. Sam Okuwanu is tied with them. So the 49ers, the Niners didn't need to make a trade for a superstar. That's never what the expectation was. Obviously, they were very interested in Trey Hendrickson, but the price tag was too hot. I get that. But they couldn't even make a move for a depth piece after they lost their second opening day starter at defensive end in Michael Williams on top of Nick Bosa. And I just think that a depth piece, another body at this point, because it's a numbers game on this roster, would have helped them dramatically. And let me ask you this. Where does this edge rusher rotation rank among the 32 teams in the NFL? Bryce Huff is the most proven pass rusher on this team. He has 4 sacks, and he's been a revelation this year. And I always loved that move from the jump, which is why I talked about it in March, months before it was made, because I like the thought of him teaming back up with Robert Saleh. He's been very disruptive. Outside of that, Keion White played very well in his Niners debut, but he plays better when he rushes the quarterback from defensive tackle. Clelin Ferrell was a street free agent. The Niners added him to the practice squad. He's a good scheme fit. Chris Kosaric brings the best out of him. He had one of his best years back in 2023 when he had 3.5 sacks, but there's a reason why no other teams brought him in. Sam Okuwanu is a former UDFA who has been a great developmental story for San Francisco. He could play defensive end. He could play defensive tackle. He plays with a relentless motor, but he kind of is who he is. And then Robert Beal has never done anything at the NFL level. So among the 32 teams in the NFL, this is definitely a bottom 5 edge rusher rotation. And again, I'm talking about edge rushers here, not defensive tackles. Another bummer about this and why I'm annoyed, Robert Saleh has done an incredible job with this Niners defense this year. They are 10th in the league in points per game. They have a top 10 red zone defense. With what he's done, with all of these injuries, the lack of talent, combined with having to play a bunch of young players, for the Niners defense to perform at this high of a level, what an incredible coaching job that Robert Saleh has done this year. And I predicted that he was going to make this defense leaps and bounds better than it was in 2024. But you might only have him this year. And I thought that the Niners should have maximized potentially only having him for 1 year before he walks potentially and gets a head coaching job elsewhere. Now, he's going to make chicken salad out of chicken shit like he's done all year, but at times, it's not going to work when you dial up blitzes like we saw against Houston. And so it's unfair to him to not give him enough ingredients for the recipe to try to maximize this defensive unit. And how do you think some of the veterans on this Niners team are feeling after San Francisco decided to stand pat? If you're Trent Williams and you're 37 years old, you're like, man, that kind of stinks. If you're Christian McCaffrey, who up until this point has actually stayed healthy, and going into this year, he had missed 10 plus games in 3 of the last 5 years, you're like, man, that's a bummer. I mean, CMC leads the NFL in touches, but it could be all for naught because there's a ceiling on this Niners team. George Kittle is starting to get a little bit older. He's toward the tail end of his prime. For a player like that, it kind of stinks. And fans, and yours truly, aren't the only ones who are feeling frustrated by this. According to Mike Silver, very tapped into the Niners organization, he reported this on Wednesday. The reason so many Niner fans and plenty of people in the building are so frustrated the team didn't make any trades yesterday isn't because they're in search of some knee-jerk sugar high. It's because this injury-plagued defense, as currently constituted, isn't good enough. And in the back of our mind, we all know this team isn't good enough. You get in the dance, anything can happen. So I think Niner fans should be frustrated and annoyed that the Niners did not make a move. And there are some people who cover this football team who are saying Niner fans shouldn't be frustrated. You should be content because you don't want to get fleeced in any deal. But there were moves to be made. Draymond Jones went to the Ravens at 3-5, and the Ravens got him for a 6th or 7th round pick. The Niners could have given up something like that for a player like that. Now, it's not for a lack of making moves. I've said this for years here on this show. And this is a reason why we talk about trade rumors on this show. John Lynch has been an aggressive general manager during his tenure, especially going into the deadline. Traded for Jimmy Garoppolo in 2017, traded for Emmanuel Sanders in 2019, traded for Jordan Willis in 2020, Charles Omenihu in 2022, traded for Christian McCaffrey in 2023, or 2022, 2022, traded for Chase Young in 2023. So it's not for a lack of making moves. But the 49ers as a team have as many sacks as Brian Burns. The 49ers as a team have as many quarterback hits as Zach Allen. And you just can't survive when you play defensive football in this manner when you can't rush the quarterback. Simple. Now, John Lynch, of course, was asked about this and said this about the trade deadline on KNBR. We're top 4 in the league in trades made this year. We did a lot to improve our team, and we did it to the end. We weren't going to make an overpayment. We weren't going to get fleeced. We weren't going to overpay. Here's the problem. I'll give you credit for making trades for Brian Robinson and Sky Moore and making moves like that, right? But after the Michael Williams injury, you are now once again one injury away from scrambling at defensive end and being in no man's land. Now I want to expand on that coming up just around the corner. First, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. When I do Niners shows, I want them to be informative. I want them to be insightful. I want them to be thought-provoking. I want you to think a little bit. I want them to be conversational. I want them to be engaging, for you to have a voice. If all that sounds great, I think that's a big reason why we've been able to grow this show into the empire that it is. Let's get to 177,000 subscribers and hit that sub button right now. Let's get to our sponsor for today's show, our friends at Omaha Steaks. There's no off-season for flavor with Heartland quality food delivered right to your door. And Omaha Steaks is the official sponsor of tailgating. Weather's starting to get a little bit cooler. It feels like football weather out there. There's nothing better than a tailgate. And Omaha Steaks delivers legendary flavor that makes game day unforgettable right to your door. Enjoy grass-fed, grain-finished, extra-aged, USDA-certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, and more, with game day favorites also like wings, deli-style Frank's, brats, and cheesesteaks. Omaha Steaks offers unrivaled quality and variety. Every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee, and every steak is perfectly aged to maximize tenderness and hand-cut by master butchers in America's heartland. Grass-fed, grain-finished beef has more marbling for exceptional flavor, and it's the choice of steakhouses and professional chefs all around the world. How about this? Omaha Steaks has been America's original butcher since 1917. 5 generations of uncompromising quality backed by an unconditional 100% money-back guarantee. So make game day delicious with the official sponsor of tailgating. Visit omahasteaks.com. And faithful, listen up. When you use the promo code 49ers at checkout, you get $35 off. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code 49ers at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. Let's go. Now, I sent out a couple of tweets having debates and conversations with people on social media with fans and media members who have said, I'm content that the Niners didn't make a move. You can't sacrifice future draft capital because that draft capital is very valuable. You can't overpay. You can't go after a rental. Well, for the people who are saying, I'm fine with the Niners not making a move, they weren't going to go to the playoffs or do anything in the playoffs anyway, let me ask you this. Did Niner fans out there expect San Francisco to make the NFC Championship game in 2021 when they started the season 3-5 with Jimmy Garoppolo? Now they have Brock Purdy and Mac Jones. Both those quarterbacks better than Jimmy G. How about in 2022 when the Niners started 4-4? Did you expect them to make it to the NFC Championship game then? Well, some people might be saying they had Nick Bosa and Fred Warner healthy for those seasons. They had Jimmy G at quarterback in 2021, and they had a third-string rookie quarterback in 2022 in Brock Purdy, who was drafted with the final pick in the NFL draft. The point here is get in the dance, and anything can happen. In 2021, the Niners were underdogs in the wild card round on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. They kicked their ass. How about them Cowboys? The Niners were underdogs going up against the Packers, who were the number 1 seed at Lambeau Field as the snow was coming down. And in a physical, defensive-oriented ball game that came down to the wire, the Niners blocked a punt, returned it for a touchdown. Robbie Gould split the uprights at the buzzer, and the Niners made it to the NFC title game. They should have made it to the Super Bowl that year. They were up 17-7 going into the fourth quarter. Jaquiski Tartt dropping that pick. Brutal. The Niners in 2021 got into the playoffs in general because of a wild, crazy win the last week of the season when they were down by 17 points against the Rams. In 2022, they got off to that slow start. They trade for Christian McCaffrey. His first game as a Niner, they got shellacked by the Kansas City Chiefs. Then they went on that run, and that run included legendary play by Mr. Irrelevant in the draft, Brock Purdy, who went undefeated the rest of the way and then won 2 playoff games before he got hurt in the NFC Championship game against Philly. For the people who are saying, you can't give up draft picks, man, the Niners need those. Recent Niners third-round picks. Jake Moody, Cam Latu, Danny Gray, Trey Sermon, Ty Davis-Price. All no longer on the team. The Eagles, on the other hand, gave up a third-round pick for edge rusher, Jalen Phillips. And if he leaves after the year, then Eagles get a third-round pick compensatory selection back. That's good business right there. Now, some people might say, well, what do you think about Jair Brown, Dominic Pooney, and Upton Stout? They were former third-round picks who were starting for this football team. Would they be better than a Jalen Phillips or a Jermaine Johnson? Jair Brown is one of the worst starting safeties in the NFL. I like Upton Stout, and we'll see what he becomes. Dominic Pooney has really struggled in year 2. You have no idea what those players are going to become. You do have an idea what the player is who you're trading for because that player, for the most part, is proven. And speaking of the Eagles, a lot of people will say, Chase, stop comparing the Niners to the Philadelphia Eagles. I hate the Eagles. They beat the Niners in the NFC Championship game, and even though we shellacked them in 2023, I hate them. Well, that's the model organization in the sport right now. They've won 2 Lombardi trophies since 2017. They have the best, most aggressive, most savviest, and most gangster general manager in football who has earned the nickname Ski Mask Howie. With the way that they operate, ownership, general manager, culture, roster building, that's an organization that you want to follow. The Niners, on the other hand, have not won a Super Bowl since 1994. Stop living in this world where you think the Niners have been the Patriots dynasty. They haven't. So if I'm ever critical of the Niners, it's because I want them to win. They've been so close to winning. But aggressive teams and aggressive businesses win. And at the deadline, they weren't aggressive enough. And so it's a copycat league. Keep in mind what the Eagles are doing and apply that type of strategy. Now, it's important to note that Jeffrey Lurie is the Eagles owner. He lets Howie have the runway to make all of these moves. We're blaming John Lynch here. It could very well be Jed York saying, you can't make a move. It just doesn't make sense. It's not the year. Let's not do it. But you're 6-3 in a wide open NFC. You have 6 wins. You're in 3rd place in the NFC West, but the Seahawks and the Rams have 6 wins as well. You're 3-0 inside this division. The New York Jets, they wanted a 2nd-round pick for Jermaine Johnson. Is that a little bit high for an asking price? Yeah, a little bit. But does he make your football team better now? Could you sign him beyond this year? He's also a restricted free agent next year. So on a rookie contract, he's actually pretty affordable at the defensive end spot. You don't know when Nick Bosa and Mykel Williams are going to come back. So you're going to be light at defensive end next year anyway. Is the player that you're going to draft in the 2nd round better than Jermaine Johnson? Might not be. And this is a player who thrived under Robert Saleh. You couldn't get Bradley Chubb for a future mid-round pick? I think you could have. Don't forget to give me a follow on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior. Always appreciate the support. And look, whether you like me, whether you hate me, whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me, I love talking football with all of you. It's obviously a huge passion of mine.